collision with purpose, in pursuit of purpose.
Greetings, friends of the A Collision with Purpose movement. Welcome to Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. I am Dr. Laxley Stephenson. This groundbreaking podcast delves into the multifaceted experiences of men across different generations in an area where societal norms and expectations rapidly evolve. This show offers young and older men a unique platform to voice their challenges, triumphs, and perspectives.
My name is Augusta Foster, one of your co-hosts. In each of these episodes, we aim to foster understanding and bridge the gap between generations, exploring themes from masculinity and mental health to career dynamics and personal relationships. Moreover, we believe that by bringing these voices together from varied age groups, the show is able to shed light on commonalities and differences in the male experience, encouraging open dialogue and mutual learning.
So whether it's a teenager grappling with the pressures of social media or a senior reflecting on the changing definitions of manhood, Bridging Generations is committed to uncovering the real stories of men navigating the complexities of a changing world. I am Juan Marcel, another one of your co-hosts for this awesome and an extremely informative show. Doc, what is going on this week? What's new?
Man, so much is new. We're becoming iron.
Okay.
Break that down. Break that down.
Yeah, we're becoming iron. Well, we're gonna go deeper into it. We're gonna go deeper into it later on, right? But what a statement, right? To say we're becoming iron. Yeah. And talk about courage and conviction. Tales of courage and conviction. Well, let us welcome, our guests, those listening to us tonight, and those that will be watching, the replay. We have a big show for you tonight. We have a special guest, and we won't give it away yet, but we're looking forward to a powerful conversation about understanding who you are, your own story, right? So we'll be talking about this tonight. But before we go there, Augusta, what is happening with you?
It has been for those who haven't seen me here, it has been a very interesting past 5 to 6 weeks. Fatherhood call. So for the past 6 weeks and currently right now is the last one. My youngest daughter has been engaged in swimming. So I've been in full on fatherhood mode the past 5 to 6 weeks, all the way poured into that, which is my primary passion and love. Had the chance to go into California and witness my oldest daughter graduated, promote out of junior high. She's now transitioning to becoming a high schooler. So yeah, I have been enjoying the full spectrum of watching a teenager progress to watching a 6-year-old learn the backstroke. So it is a lot going on in the world of fatherhood.
Absolutely.
So she's swimming the backstroke.
She is backstroke freestyle. I've been very blessed with athletic children, baseball players, track players, and now we've got a swimmer. So I'm thankful. Superior genetics. Superior
Can you
genetics.
can you swim?
Very good. Very good swimmer.
Yeah, just
I mean,
wanted.
listen.
What can you swim?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There we go.
Yeah.
See,
I love swimming. I love water.
See, I'm from Jamaica, right? Ocean all the way around
Yeah.
me. There's so many people I know can't swim. So it's not a
Really?
given that because that you can swim. So I wanted to, I want to know a little bit about that. Can you swim, right? Because it's important. Juan, what's going on with you, man?
Or much like my co-host and brother Augusta, been in full effect when it comes to fatherhood. Of course, Savannah Elise is with me, and so she has been in camp, and she's interested. She's taken an interest in coding, and computers and all of that. So this camp that she's at, she does the arts, do the STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So we've been doing that, having conversations, interesting conversations, even about emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
and just the importance of reading. We talked about that.
Mm,
How she was talking to me about how she realizes that the more she reads, her vocabulary expands. She understands more words. And this conversation actually started because the other night we were playing Scrabble.
Mhm.
Actually Scrabble Junior. So I'm like, oh, I'm about to like knock her off this board. And I got on this board and I was stuck. I was like, wait a minute. And she's creating words and we're talking through it. And then she says, she's like, see, Dad, I get it now. Why it matters to read and continue reading, because you learn, you have more words when you need them. So that's what these days have been looking like.
It's interesting that we're talking about education, right? At a very young age, early age, and because our guest tonight is an educator.
mm.
So I'm sure he'll be, he's listening backstage, and this is a topic that I'm sure he's excited about, and we'll talk a little about education tonight, and especially at that early age. So something to look forward to in our conversation.
Yeah.
So what else? We talk about commitment. We made a commitment that we'll come and we'll give a report each week. So let's go to Augusta about his commitment.
Still tied in with service, because time has been so constrained with actually, fatherhood and life and preparing for some other life milestones that are soon to come. I haven't been able to go and physically like do some of the volunteer work that I've liked to do. So the attempt has been actively be a blessing still, even if it's financially or small time, even if it's getting off of the freeway and seeing a family and not just dropping the money, but taking the time to say, hey, I actually have that 5-6 minutes. Let me run over here to sign this for food. Let me run over, drive, grab them some food, and I could just park and walk across and give it. So that the past 6 weeks, that's really what it's been. I haven't had as much time as I'd like to really dedicate to going out and serving, passing out shoes, feeding the homeless. So I'm just any little instance where I could step in, and it's something as minor as it being 98 plus degrees and giving somebody a Gatorade on the bus stop, because no one really thinks of those times
Yeah.
where it's that hot. And Atlanta has an absorbent amount of unsheltered people, and driving by, if it's something that doesn't make your brain run, if there's nothing in your heart that goes, I got to water in this car, there's much prayers to you. So that's really where my last 6 weeks has also been investing in with respect to service.
I was having a conversation with my co-host on our other show, and while she was driving, I don't know, it came out. She said, "Oh, there's a homeless man." On the street. She was driving, and it really caught her attention. But of course, she's committed her life to supporting and providing service for, individuals who are in not as good a situation as some of us. So, yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about that. The need is so great.
Yeah.
Concern.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So keep on doing what you're doing. It's really hot out there, and that it is so hot is more reason why we need to become more vigilant about that type of work, and do it till we can't do it anymore. Then you hand it off and get other people involved is the key.
Absolutely.
Doing it,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So Juan, what's up with you, man? Talk to me about your commitment, because I know you got some stuff going on.
Well, earlier when we started this conversation about commitments, one to myself with, still pushing myself to take I would say unusual opportunities I would probably usually either turn away or walk away from. So that was one. And two, just the continued work with mentorship and working with the young guys. And so with school ending at the end of May, the work we were doing with the academy came to an end just for the school year. We'll be picking it back up in August. However, a mentee of mine, he has a young men's group on Discord. And I ran into him at the gym the other day. It was about like last week, the week before last. And he grabbed my attention. He was like, "Hey, I've been meaning to invite you on. We just want your insight. I know what you provided to me and a couple of his other buddies. I talked to him often, and he was like, what you give us, can you jump on if you have the time and just chime in from, during the conversation." So I jumped on at night, and they meet twice a week. So I've been on for the past couple of weeks, just jumping on with them and talking with them, listening, just providing insight and perspective, and just listening as they just talk about what life looks like as a young Christian man, education, life purpose and all of that stuff. So just listening to them and just being a part of the conversation with these young men. So it's been pretty good.
Awesome. I want to make an announcement for next week. Our topic will be fatherhood. We're talking about fatherhood for next week. So make a note of that. And we will invite not just one or two, but we'll have people drop in to talk about fatherhood. So it won't be a one particular guest. We'll get as many individuals to come on and just talk about that. Right? So I think that's a good segue into, well, first, let me say, for me, my commitment is to, provide scholarships, as many as I can, in the most underserved areas for the most underserved students. We are getting back to that. In fact, we have registered a Collision with Purpose Learning Academy. We still need to do some work with that to build it out, because education is our key. So we'll be building out the courses and get that rolling as well. So we'll all have a role to play with that. So let us take a quick break and come back and bring our guest on, special guest. Okay, let's take a quick break.
Collision with Purpose, in pursuit of purpose.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We're bridging generations, voices of men in a changing world. And without further ado, Juan, please introduce our guest. And as usual, we want to give him the biggest drum roll we can. We're capable of giving.
Yes, well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have the distinct honor of welcoming Dr. Ronnie Mack to our platform. He is works in the higher education space. He is the director of undergraduate research at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. He connects students with research opportunities through funding, training, and resource communications. And this is his work, because he's definitely done his work. He completed his doctoral work at Nova Southeastern University, completed his master's 2011 and his bachelor's in 2009 with degrees at Georgia Southern University. He is a trained life coach in life design, and he's an adjunct faculty member with the management department and communication departments at Embry. So this, I'm gonna call him young man. This individual is doing his work. We appreciate his work, not only in the community, but also in the educational industry. Would you, without further ado, please welcome our distinguished guest, Dr. Ronnie Mack. Drum roll, please.
Bring him on. There is the man.
Dr. Mack.
I appreciate being called young man. I appreciate that.
I thought you would. I
appreciate it. Oh man, I'm definitely glad to be here. It was just super inspiring to hear you all just share, honestly, a little bit of your story. I would honestly, for Augusta, it sounded like you was moving more into testimony of how you were caring and volunteering for others. Same thing for you, Juan. I think we just don't realize how impactful storytelling and sharing a little bit of us can be to other people. But I'm happy to be here. My name is Ronnie Mack. Juan did a great job of reading my bio, but hopefully we can dig more into some deeper conversation beyond that.
Absolutely. Because we definitely want to hear more about your story.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, and tonight's topic is understanding your story, knowing who you are.
Yeah.
And why is that so important, Dr. Mack?
So back to my bio, and it kind of gives context of what's going on. I worked with students. I mean, Juan, you sound like you've worked with the youth as well for the past 12 years. I've worked in whether it's college, high school space, middle school space, especially a lot of young men in a lot of cases, the faculty and teachers that support them. And one thing I've noticed is a lot of people are walking through life and just letting things happen to them with not necessarily like vision and direction. So, hey, maybe I should just take this opportunity because my family have always done it. Or maybe I should engage in these activities because these are things that are always happening to us. And sometimes, you got to take advantage of opportunities that are ahead of you. But to me, it's like a meal. Would you rather have some food you can pick out, or you want something that somebody just hands you and you got to take it? And I think with what happens in life, we don't really spend time with us to understand our story, who we are, and what we desire. So we just let life, and I speak for myself and my past experiences, you just let life keep handing you things and not necessarily having vision and ambition. And so that's why I've always been really passionate about story, and not just my story, but hear other story, because there's information in that. There's lessons, there's relevancy, there's revelations that if I just sit down and maybe share mine or listen to somebody else's, there's so much I can learn to navigate life.
Very interesting that you're saying and the way you explain it, because we're talking about living in the shadows within, and our producer who's backstage is about to launch a project about shadows within and getting out of that place, becoming you. But you can't become you unless you understand who you are, right?
Yeah, very true.
You need to know a little bit of something about who you are, and tonight that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. But what really inspired you to pursue a career in higher education and research?
I think it's a mix of taking advantage of good opportunities, and once again, just kind of having life happen to me. Sometimes it can be good, but I wish I would have had more of a vision. That's what I tell kids now, and kind of what you're inspiring too. What do you want? What do you desire? What do you bring to the world? So that you can kind of create this master plan. But for me, what brought me to education was happenstance. It's funny. I remember being in high school and just hating school. And I'm like, I'll never come back here. I did not like school, did not enjoy it. And now 12 years later, I work in education. But for me, so a little bit of my background, I went to Georgia Southern University. And luckily, that was actually through a men's program. We were in a high school and someone took us on a trip. I never thought I could go to college. I didn't know how it worked. Somebody was willing to let me into their story. One of our directors who told us like, hey, this is where I went to school. This is how I became an educator. This is how my life started. So he was able to kind of take us on a trip to kind of see his old stomping grounds, his experiences. So that got me to apply to Georgia Southern because I didn't know where else I was going. And originally I was going to be a sports management major. I was going to work in sports. And my genius reason was watch ESPN. I'm like, if Stephen A. Smith can yell at people all day, I could work in sports. I could do that too. It can't be that hard. Of course, that is way more difficult than TV allows. So went through school, got to about to graduate my business degree and realized I don't really like this. That was kind of one of my first self-reflecting moments of we're sitting in class and sometimes we see other people and we just feel like, okay, maybe something's wrong with me because I'm not fitting into the narrative, because I'm not excited about these topics. I'm not super engaged. Maybe something's wrong with me. But when I really reflected on what I like and what I enjoy, I'm like, I don't like this. Most of my inspirational experiences was being involved, similar to what Augusta was saying, volunteering, working in my residence hall, helping out my friends with projects, doing stuff in the community. And then one day someone stopped me. It was our dean of students at the time and mentioned, Ronnie, you could go to school to help and be an educator, or you could work in the college space. I was like, no, you don't. Nobody goes to school for that. But they did. So that's what introduced me to higher education, was him once again stopping, pausing, having a conversation with me. He could have just kept walking, but having a conversation with me was like, hey, Ronnie, this is how I got into education. This is how I started. You could also do the same thing.
How important is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone showed up in your life.
Yeah.
Point you. Mm-hmm. Something that you didn't even think about before. Mm-hmm. And here you are right now. What an impact he had in your life.
Yep.
And the lives of so many others. So, Juan, you're an educator yourself.
Yes.
Why don't you have a conversation with Dr. Ronnie?
Yeah, well, Dr. Ron, I was going to ask, how do you encourage students to share their personal stories within their academic work or even research?
I mean, that's a good question. I would say in two capacities. For in the classroom space, I try to beat them to vulnerability. So I'll try to tell my story first, whether it's like general interests, mistakes I've made, especially if I start class, like I give them kind of like my whole background story of where I was born, what do I do now, what are kind of factors that influence me. And then I always just try to create space. Like if that's staying behind class for a couple more minutes, if that is inviting kids to office hours, hey, let's get coffee afterwards, just to create the space. So if you feel comfortable enough, I'm here for you to have that conversation. And I have this conversation with friends all the time. If you really look at your life every day, I think especially for men too, when you actually get listened to or get heard, most time people are telling you what to do or making requests of you, especially for y'all, if you are fathers or you're mentoring kids, things of that nature, and mothers too. But most of the time people are asking for you or giving directions. But how many times do people really sit down and listen to you?
Yeah.
Without a request, without needing something, but really give that space. So for me, if I can bless a student with 10 minutes of just uninterrupted listening, I could do that. And then after time, they start becoming more vulnerable and they start opening up their story that way. And then we'll have kind of conversations with the research side too, because it doesn't necessarily have to be all analytical. Your story, like you said, Juan, can be represented in research, whether that is I'm inspired to do engineering because I have a family member who's been impactful, or for my story, nobody who looked like me was an engineer. So now I want to go off and do these things too. Yeah. So that gives them a way to open that channel and communicate themselves, even in research.
So would you say that there are benefits to integrating, I guess, your personal narrative into your research?
Yeah, I would say so. There's conversations. I've done a training with, so I'm a part of this association here. It's called like Florida Undergraduate Research Association, where we're creating events for future researchers within our colleges. And we did a conversation around advocacy and self-branding. And a part of that is telling your story through. So not only telling a story through research, but sometimes telling your story. Especially if you're trying to advocate to politicians, fundraisers, things of that nature. They don't care about the minute details of what part that you put on this plane to make it go. They want to know the who, what, where, like who, why is this important? Who does it affect? How much it will cost me? Does it touch my constituents? Do they care at all? And like, is there a feel good story at the end? So, but if you could master storytelling, or you can master putting your story into it, that helps people reflect. I mean, for folks who are Bible readers, what did Jesus talk about? He talked in parables. He talked in stories.
Yep.
And that's how people connected to that. He talked in relevant stories.
Mm. Augusta, I see you bopping your head. I know you have questions getting ready to flow out.
I like the way he presented it specifically. I know corporate wise they would refer to it as even like an elevator pitch.
Yeah, definitely.
But I like the tailoring conversations towards, like the expression of one's own journey. So what is it? Because you used the word that I love, which is vulnerability. Because I tell people I don't at times, not that I don't like the word honesty, but honesty is me telling you something that you could find out. Vulnerability is me telling you something you'd never know if I didn't remove the veil. How do you develop that relationship to where you being able to be with those students, having those conversations, and even in your own life, what was it, or what did it take for you to build that level of confidence and relationship with people to get them to open up, to have that vulnerability, even tell their story?
I think for me, you got to practice it in your own life. And I always haven't practiced it well, but it came to points and times where I saw two things. A, my life was so messed up and broken. Like I need some help. Like I got to a point where you're going to need some help. And the second part was I saw how storytelling examples help people feel more cared for, made what I was saying more relevant to them, and kind of more on time. So I would say from the first part, having a good relationship with my pastor, who's more of like a father figure and a mentor to me, right after like a divorce, that helped me. And I could have been kind of like most people, kind of who clammed up or just not express myself. But it had to come to a point where like, I don't know what to do with these feelings. I don't know what to do. Like there's a lot of stuff I did wrong. I don't know how to process this. And honestly, him telling me his story of like, hey, I'm a man in the pulpit. I help people every day, but I would literally have been where you were at before. And this is what happened. Step A, step B, step C. And especially for him, and I'm glad Dr. Stephenson is doing this, you need these stories from multiple generations. Mm-hmm. And so for him being older, it's like, okay, cool. Looking at you physically, you're older than me and you're doing better, so I can get through this. Mm-hmm. A contemporary can give me some insight on how they're dealing with it. We're the same age, but like seeing an older brother say, hey, I'm still okay, that helped me out a lot. So that was probably like a pivotal time of like being vulnerable. I wouldn't have gotten the help I needed. But then also when I talk with students, whether they've failed a class, dealing with breakup, or disconnect with their parents, if I'm able to tell these stories too, so like it makes me more relevant. So the advice I'm giving you, I'm not just giving you because it's theoretical. I'm giving it to you because I've seen it in some capacity. And I may not be the only avenue. I always suggest to them to talk to more people to get, back to the research conversation, get more information before you make decisions. But if I can tell you stories and things that I've struggled with, it makes me just a little more relevant.
Yeah,
I would say.
Relevant, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to focus a bit on you in terms of what you consider to be your most significant achievement in your career so far.
To be honest, most people will probably say like my doctorate would be. So my doctorate is in two parts. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this. I'll say two things. Speaking in public, period, because I remember being deathly afraid public speaking. I saw a podcast the other day talk about the most top fear of human beings. Most people rather get shot than public speak in front of somebody. I'm trying to paraphrase what they said. But that was always an achievement for me because I've been around so many smart, intelligent people, especially at the university I work at now, who struggle with communication, who have information that the world needs, but just that social anxiety and that social pressure, they struggle with that. And then, of course, I would say my doctorate from an academic piece, not because I completed it, but the full story of it is it took me 7 years. My doctorate was supposed to be 4, but due to like trials, issues, COVID on that back end, it took me 7 years to complete. So that's another story I like to be vulnerable with people with. If I can finish, and yeah, it took me a little bit longer, anybody can.
Wow, that's powerful testimony right there. You know, just stay in there, be resilient, be persistent, and even when you feel like quitting, don't quit. Because there are those days, right?
Yeah,
those days. You know, when you're taking on a doctoral program, there are those days when you just don't want to show up.
Be like, I've got enough degrees. This is fine. I'll find something else.
Yes.
So I understand your point there. You know, so again, achievements, but what about challenges? What's some of your biggest challenges, and what do you do to overcome them?
I think it's back to the story piece. Well, some of my biggest challenges have been internal. Like, how do I see myself? And I say it in 2 ways. I say it because I work with, once again, brilliant people. All y'all probably see it in some capacity, who probably have a brilliant idea or a brilliant skill, but they just don't see themselves doing well, or they don't see themselves being successful. And I used to struggle with that as well, whether that was speaking, whether that was how I would instruct. It was always this nagging voice in my head telling me what I can and could not do. And back to the story piece, you, as not just men, but people in general, you have to really take stock of your story. What has happened to you? What hasn't happened to you? And then like build context around it. So I have to journal and process, all right, where does this maybe at times low self-esteem or second guessing yourself come from? And then have some real conversations with yourself about, all right, that was 15, 20 years ago. You're a different person now. Or look at all these other pieces of success that you've conquered without hearing that voice. And then also for those from a faith standpoint, like what does the word say about who you are and your character? So my biggest challenge that I still fight with in life is how I see myself and making sure to quiet that voice.
And again, we're talking about understanding yourself, knowing yourself, and how you see yourself.
Yeah.
Because, it's powerful what you see in the mirror.
Yeah.
Who you see in the mirror. You often hear people say, oh, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah.
Isn't that the powerful thing when they say that? When the only thing that is different is their mind, their mindset.
Yeah.
But yet they blame the bed, right?
Yeah.
And so we ought to be very careful about that. So, Juan, I'm going to turn it back to you.
I was sitting here listening, and just from what you said, a lot of what you said, it sounds like that telling your story can have a major impact just on mental health and emotional well-being. Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah, I would think so. I would definitely say it's therapeutic, because not only are you getting it out, and you probably know as men, like so many times we hold things in and it festers and we think it'll go away, but then it arises other ways. It might be anger outbursts, it might be depressive episodes, but just getting and speaking it out loud is helpful. Whether I'm sitting down with a student saying, hey, I have felt like a failure before, whether that was financial due to mistakes or academically, but hey, I'm now in a different space. So not only am I helping you, but I'm also speaking out loud to kind of hear myself and hear myself getting past something. Like just the idea of getting anything out, whether that's a written journal, whether that is confessing to a friend, whether that's prayer for others, like just getting things out brings us a lot more peace.
Mm.
I hear a lot. Go ahead.
No, Juan, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I hear a lot. You speak a lot about when you started with your relationship with your pastor, and then just you being up and speaking and different things. Are you active in ministry?
I love Jesus and I support the church. And the reason why
says every uncle ever who wife was at church every Sunday.
No direct commitments. I'm just here. If y'all need me, let me know.
Yeah, just because I laugh at that because my pastor a couple times like, we're gonna get you up there a couple Sundays. I'm like, I mean, the Lord tell me to do it, I got to. But right now, I'll fold these chairs and help you all sweep up.
That day is coming. That day is coming. That day is coming.
I just wanted to ask.
No problem.
Yeah, might be signing himself up for something he don't know. One night you'll be in there praying. You'll be in there praying. You know what, Lord, send me. That next Sunday you're gonna get sent to be like, wait, so
when I said me, I
need to provide more detail and clarification on said Sunday.
Right.
Wow. We're bridging generations, voices of men, and we're having a conversation today with Dr. Ronnie Mack, and we're talking about understanding your story. And how important is it, Augusta, this one is for you. How important is it to know your story, to understand it?
I think it was something Dr. Ronnie said that actually hit me, and I think it's something, with even in telling my story, there's being able to provide your full unadulterated testimony. You never realize who can hear it.
Yeah.
And it changes their life. Like I wrote a book that I'm in the process of tinkering called The Divorce Dad Reset. So when I heard you say divorce, I even thought about that. Yeah. Like in the moment of, all hell breaking loose, losing house, kids, et cetera, and all of that. And just, now from progressing from being removed from that by 6-7 years, and now thinking when I engage people, people who DM me, family members who ask, hey, listen, what is this? Them knowing my whole story. Even the fact that they reach out and go, hey, look, I'm not asking you for guidance because I'm older than you. I'm 15, 20 years older than you. I'm your cousin. But, what would you do in this case? What is that? And I think that's the benefit of being honest and telling and allowing people into your full testimony, because you never know the words that you speak, what ears they'll fall on and what effect it'll have. Because you could have that minor conversation, like he said, that administrator from the institution taking time out to go, you know what, let me holler at Ronnie real quick. Yeah. And it altering his entire life. Him never having an idea of, well, maybe this might be my career trajectory going into working education. But that one conversation made him go, man, I didn't even really think of it that way. So I would say it's very valuable to understand and being honest with who you are and your life experiences and that testimony, because you never know the ears that are going to hear that conversation. You never know how those words are going to fall on a person, because it may literally change someone's entire life.
And I want to tag on that too. I think a lot of times you need in-person human testimony so you can see the emotions, know the person. Like we have social media that can give me a perspective of the story. What's the difference between I can call Augusta a couple times to so tell me this again, and what happened to you, or what didn't happen to you, or somebody, or Augusta can talk back to me and be there for me. So I could look at how to survive divorce as a dad a video 1,000 times versus Augusta, somebody I can really make contact with. And I'll say for my story, I wish I would have asked more questions of other people's story, whether that was happy marriages, divorced marriages. Like now I'm in a space where me and their mom, great space. We talk about that all the time of like great co-parents. We should probably share this, how we function a lot well. But I wish I would have asked questions. Brother, what does co-parenting look like for you? What does being divorced like for you? What does being happy for 30, 50 years look like? and that would have helped me make more critical and intentional decisions.
Yeah, there's power in conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're having a conversation, as we are having right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a good time to take a break, but we'll take a break on stage. We're going to stay on stage, and we're going to play a video, and it's about becoming iron, and then we'll have a conversation around the video. So let's play the video, Becoming Iron.
In a forge of life where strong survive, a tale is written of hearts that strive. Through fire and flame they find their way, becoming iron where courage holds sway. Becoming iron with hearts forged in fire, tales of courage and conviction rising even higher, displaying strength in the fiercest fight. Becoming iron, shining in the night. The brave man faces the darkest night. The empowered man fights with all his might. The resilient man stands unwavering and strong. The inspired man knows where he belongs. Together they rise, conquering fears, becoming iron through trials and tears. Becoming iron with hearts forged in fire, tales of courage and conviction rising even higher, displaying strength in the fiercest fight. Becoming iron, shining in the night. In the tales of old and the battles new, conviction's light sees them through. From abysses deep to the morning light, they become mine. In the endless fight, becoming iron with hearts forged in fire, tales of courage and conviction rising even higher, displaying strength in the fiercest fight. Becoming iron, shining in the night. In the tales of old and the battles new, conviction's light sees them through. From abysses deep to the morning light, they become mine. In the endless fight, becoming iron with hearts forged in fire, tales of courage and conviction rising even higher, displaying strength in the fiercest fight. Man becoming iron, shining in the night.
All right. Dr. Mack, Juan, Augusta, I think they're talking about you, becoming iron. Yes, I think so. We'll have a conversation around becoming iron. All right. And what are you hearing when you hear this song, Becoming Iron? You know, the process for iron to form into something is you got to burn. You go through life and with all the struggles and challenges that you face. And if you have the courage and conviction, then you can rise like Dr. Mack did, like you, Augusta, and you, Juan. So let's talk a little bit about that. And they describe 4 different kinds of, men in there. There was a brave man. There is the inspired man. There is the resilient man. And what was the other one? The empowered man. Empowered man. So let's start with our guests, right? What kind of man do you, of all of the 4 categories, do you identify with the most? Dr. Mack.
I think for me, it's inspiring. One of my passions is always helping people see what's in them and helping them make it bigger, helping them achieve things they haven't thought about. A lot of times we'll sit around and have $1 million ideas and shoot them away. But sometimes you need to cultivate and think on those and study those and process those. You might be on to something. So, and that's what I needed in certain times and struggles in life. I need somebody to inspire me, to tell me I could do something, that I can excel no matter the circumstances, and even point in that direction. So I would say inspiring man is one I like to connect with.
The one you connect with the most.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's some
Oh yeah, brother.
level of connection as well. Augusta, what about you? Which one do you connect with, align with the most?
When it comes down to aligning with number 26, sorry, chemistry nerd, he gets the joke. I would say the resilient man. Specifically growing up and always tell the story about growing up where I grew up and things like that. But my favorite story to tell is a story that my 14-year-old daughter, this is the first year she hasn't yet, because she hasn't bothered me about it. But I have a picture. The long story short is I have a picture of myself and 4 of my closest friends from elementary school, and 2 of them are incarcerated for prison for crimes. One is in and out, and the other is who knows. And then there's me, a guy who we all had mirrored lives, and there wasn't a lot different from them, but they ended up where they did, and I've been blessed to go in the opposite direction. So I look at all of the decisions I made for me, even when they were absolutely poor, and I look at the grace of God over my life and areas where it could have went way worse. And from that, people around me seeing my ability to never really just be down, to always find a way to get back up. And that's been, I would say that is the one that I most identify with.
The resilient man stands unwavering and strong. No matter what is going on, no matter the challenges, you're going to stand in there and do the fight. And I should say that the inspired man knows where he belongs. And that's you. And that's why it's so important to understand your story. Juan, what about you? Which one do you identify with the most?
Interestingly, it would be resilient. It's interesting that Augusta said that, but I was reading something about what makes iron strong, and it's adding the component of carbon, and carbon's impurities is what's added that makes it hard and strong, and that stood out to me, like the impurities of it is what keeps it from splitting and coming apart, and I thought, wow, all of the things that I've experienced, seen, and gone through, and oftentimes when I was young, I would try to separate what I felt was the good side of myself from the bad side, and I had to mature and learn that all of me is what's necessary and what's needed, right? And there's no separation. So even the good and the bad, flaws and alls, is what makes me, like we talk about iron, hard and strong, being able to withstand, and take a blow and still be standing and keep going, and even get up when I fall down. So I would definitely say I feel like the resilient man is what most align.
Yeah. And Augusta, you and Juan, you say you're resilient. How do you maintain that resilience when you're in this battle, on the battlefield?
I would, for me personally, I could say, having that strong faith and belief that the very next day, like I said, I have been in plenty of situations in my life that I elected to put myself in, and really, quite honestly, instances where I should not be sitting here today, not even in a prison, but just gone in a grave due to electing to who I've been around and people. And that resiliency has come from really the grace of God, because there was no other explanation. So I wake up every day looking at every situation. I say trial and tribulation because nobody ever is just having a trial. Nobody's ever just tribulating. The two go hand in hand. But I look at all of the issues that I face every day, and I say, man, I serve a pretty big God. These issues are small, and I just keep pushing. Like I don't really worry about it, and I haven't, because I realize there's so much more of the world to see. My children are healthy. My parents are great. All of these other things.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would I have the resilience to say, like, man, I'm actually really blessed despite what it looks like.
Yeah.
So that's every day I wake up with that mindset of, regardless of what it looks like to me, I know, man, I'm far more blessed than I am anything else.
Juan?
I would, of course, definitely say faith, but I know a major component that is instrumental to me making it and being able to move forward is my support system. I know for sure that I would not be standing. I can be honest about it, and be in my right mind. If it wasn't for the positivity and the constant encouragement from, my siblings, my parents, family, extended family, even friends. There are times when things are going on and I haven't muttered a word. And those who know me well or just connected, they'll text and say, "Hey man, you was on my heart. You on mine, you good?" Or I had a dream, so I just started praying for you, or, just things like that, and it reminds me of God's undying, unyielding, unending love for us. And it keeps me going, and I think a part of it too is the bravery, even listening to Augusta, I think it takes, to be resilient, it takes bravery to get up and say, you know what, I'm gonna keep going, or I'm gonna try it again, or I'm gonna move forward. That takes bravery. So I think it's all of that is coupled together to be resilient.
And there's a reason why I say that you align with the most, because they all come together to form one, to become one. And for me, I think I identify with the brave man faces the darkest night.
Absolutely.
Why is that so? I understand that whatever situation I'm in, I must come out of it, no matter what. Could be the toughest, roughest, and often our situation is not the best, right? They're darkest nights. And Augusta, some of what you described, growing up how you grew up, you had to face the darkest night and know that at the end of the day, you must come out strong. You must become iron as you rise through it. And so I believe, for me, understanding that I was not born with that gold spoon, so that gold, they say, you don't have that, we're not gifted. So you had to struggle and work through it just as much as you did, Dr. Mack, when you wanted to give up, quit, and say enough is enough. There was some serious times there, right? Because of whatever was happening, some dark things happening, the darkest nights. So I think that's where I am. I understand that no matter what is happening in my life, I must see through the darkness. There's light after the dark, and I must push through. So I know I'm facing it, and I'm going to push through, and I'm going to get to my end goal. But all of them together, right? These men, they rise, conquering fears, becoming iron through trials and tears. And that's the essence of what this is all about: courage and conviction. And we'll be talking more about this. We'll actually have a series on becoming iron, tales of courage and conviction, or you can say stories of courage and conviction, because I believe it's a big deal. And Dr. Mack, we're going to invite you to be a part of this project as well. You'll have stories to tell, but you can only tell one. You can't tell it all. There's one tale of courage and conviction. So let's take a quick break off screen. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll continue the conversation about knowing yourself, understanding your story. So let's take a quick break and come back.
A collision with purpose, in pursuit of purpose.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Bridging Generations, Voices of Men. We have as our special guest tonight Dr. Ronnie Mack, and we're having a conversation about knowing your story. And that, not just know it, share your story. Share your story. So that's some feedback there. So, Dr. Mack, you are a life coach in life design. What does that mean?
So with life design, it's something that stood out to me recently. So life design was created by two guys, Dave Evans and Bill Burnett. They were two Stanford engineers. So for me, it stood out to me. Engineers talking about life was, I never thought you put those kind of two things together. And they use design thinking. So what they would use for projects, how do you ideate, how do you prototype, how you test things out in small cases before you take it to like a large space. And one of the authors talked about most of this conversation with students in office hours was about things in life. What career should I take? What should I do next? Where should I move? I want to change my major. I want to do these different things. So they combined the design thinking piece, which is questions about life. So how do you take this scientific method to how you want to create the next 20, 30 years of your life? Looking at conversations about what brings you joy, what do you enjoy, your vision or focus on what do you think work should look like, what should life look like. And one thing I always liked about what they talked about was reframing. So if something bad is in your life, is it necessarily negative, or can you look at it a different way? Can you reframe it? Can you not just make it a positive, but could you create a solution after looking at it differently? They have a book, if you get a chance to read it, called Designing Your Life. And that book just really stood out to me. So I was able to be trained in that capacity. And I always like having those conversations with my students to do things outside of the common benchmarks. Yes, you're going to graduate. Yes, you're going to work at a company. But do you want to be married? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to volunteer? Do you want to impact the world? Do you want to go back and help your family? Do you want to take care of your parents? Like, what these bigger questions that we know that we're older that we have to wrestle with. Can you ask yourself these questions now so you're prepared 10 years from now when the situations come up?
Mm-hmm. All important questions, right? Juan, can you jump in the conversation?
Yeah, so I being a life coach for me really is my passion. I think more specifically because helping others to discover what I always, my tagline is, discovering where you are and to figure out where you desire to be, to get to where you desire to be. And I think that's the biggest thing is empowerment. We talked about empowerment, or the empowered man. And in a sense, I wanted to be a life coach because it's really just coaching others along the way and helping them realize their potential, essentially, so they could start to stand on their own and see that and then do it on their own. So they're left empowered. And so that's pretty much what it meant to me. And it drew me. What I've been doing it for 15 years now. So yeah. I love it. Like being a motivator, a cheerleader, just, I tell my, when I was working as a graduation coach at Kennesaw State, I would tell my students, I say, especially my athletes, when they would come in, I was a graduation coach, and I would tell them, I say, when you're on that field, whatever position it is, and that whistle is blown, that play starts, all you're thinking about is you and completing that play, making a completion, right? I said, but whether you make the completion, you do good or you do bad, what do you hear in the distant, the distinct side? They were like the cheerleaders. I said, exactly, that's me. Whether you drop the ball or you catch it or you run the touchdown or you make the block, that's me on the side. Regardless of what it looks like to you, I'm still cheering you on, and so that's how that's how I see myself as a life coach. I'm right there. I'm cheering you on. Wherever you're trying to get to, whatever the plan is, let's figure it out. Let's get there.
As a life coach, right? And how would you suggest that here's an individual, a student, or an adult, and they're finding that their story is not going the way it should, or they would like it. How do they change the narrative? What would you suggest? What are some of the things they can do to change the narrative?
My first thought would be assess, like what's all going on. You know what I mean? It's like going to the hospital. First thing you want to do is check your pressure, check your levels, like what's going on with you right now. Like, are you overworked? Is that why we're not getting to the goal? Is there like some stress or anxiety that you're dealing with? Like you said, you have this goal, but let's kind of figure out what may have changed, what may have impacted. Did a new barrier come up? Let's kind of get the lay of the land. Is probably like my first thought.
No, that makes sense. I guess it's almost like going back to the drawing board, you know, and just in, like you said, in reassessing, like, you know, kind of in the sense where I would always lead them to is like, where do you feel like you got stuck?
Yeah.
And why, you know, and then having conversations just about, well, you know, if nothing else was in the way and you could do whatever you wanted to, I mean, just starting today and you just go straight into it and nothing was in, what would that be? And then they can think through that. It's like, okay, so then let's talk about the steps. What does it look like to get there? We got to just revisit some stuff, come up with some new steps. Like, what does that look like? You know, those passions, those interests, you know. So I would definitely, I agree with you, Dr. Ronnie. You know, an assessment.
Here, this individual is lost, right? Confused. Things are just not working. Can they process that? Can they do that assessment, or do they need support? Do they need to engage someone?
Now there are assessments that that can be used to figure out, you know, if a referral is needed, right? What services are needed. If the services are beyond what we're able to offer or what I'm able to offer, then definitely a referral will be made.
You know, Augusta, you're a good example of this because you changed your narrative. How did you change it?
I changed my narrative with the thing my grandfather used to talk about, want to. He used to. I got in a lot of fights growing up, and he would tell us when we were really small, even when we were 4 and 5. You know, you know who wins the fight. It's not who bigger or stronger. It's who want to. You know, he was from backwoods Georgia, so you know that was his mindset. He just, you know, it comes down to want to. So for me, I started seeing, you know, dudes going to juvie, started seeing dudes go to jail, kept classes, grades dropping. I saw opportunities diminish, and I saw lives lost. And I said, all right, it comes down to it. My junior year of high school, with no football practice, I was from a different city from the school that my mother basically, dropped us off at. And the gang affiliations were clear because, you know, it's just California. And I remember fighting at practice 2 or 3 times, and a coach coming in and separating and saying, listen, you got to decide what you want to be. You want to be a student athlete, you want to go and progress in life, or, you know, y'all gonna keep doing this gang stuff and, you know, end up in prison. And that was the moment for me where I was like, yeah, I really don't want to be out here scrapping every day, like fighting on the train, fighting on this bus. I'm like, man, I'm taking 3 buses to get home. I'm fighting 4 or 5 different gangs on my way home. I was like, this really isn't a life. So it was want to. I wanted to not be a product of my environment. I wanted to be a husband, wanted to be a father, wanted to one day be a homeowner. It was want to. It was enough self-reflection of being like in LA, the way they'll explain it is, you know, you don't got to come off the porch, you ain't got to come outside, you know, things like that. You could be out of the way. And I realized I really have an option to be out of the way. I don't have to do this. And in that moment, I just wanted more for myself than a lot of my partners around me. So for me, that was the change, the want to. Because if you don't want to, ladies, if you're listening to this, great advice for you. You're not gonna change that man. You're not gonna change that man. Any person who changes is because they want to. Absolutely, because they want to.
You know, as I listened to you talk about it, I recall in a collision with purpose, in pursuit of purpose, you made a statement that they made you into a cop.
Yeah. Going,
you were a cop.
Yeah.
What does this world come into?
Yeah, pulling in the barbershops in my old neighborhood. I'm like, they let you be the feds. Oh wow, this is amazing. Yeah, was like, they just hiring everybody now. I was like, okay.
And that's a big deal, right? Because something happened, something switched. You became a different person.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right? That happened. And I thought, because sometimes it is a significant emotional experience you go through, right? That affect change in you, and it's immediate. You just know you have to change. And sometimes, no matter what is happening, what is going on, you just can't make that move, that push.
Yeah.
It's so challenging and difficult. And again, it's about becoming iron. We talk about that brave man who is going to push through the darkest night, no matter what. They just know this is not my story. This is maybe the beginning. I may be caught up in it right now, but it's not where I'm ending.
This is not the end, right?
It's not the end. And I think it's important that we all understand that where I am today is just part of the journey. I won't be here tomorrow. Right? And once we recognize that and understand, we can deal with anything, even the darkest nights, right? Because we know it's temporary. So again, a little bit from Tales of Courage and Conviction. And this is a good place to be having that because we're talking about our stories. So, Augusta, do you have any questions, anything else you would like to ask Dr. Mack?
I would like to go more detail specifically in your current role, because where I work with a number of people who they're paying y'all student loan debts. So I'll tell them I met somebody who they're doing great. What exactly is your role? Because I think a lot of people don't, unless you're someone who either lives in Florida or you're somebody who's really into like the aeronautical or aviation space. A lot of people don't even know what Embry-Riddle is. So can you give a little bit of history on the institution and what you do right now for Embry-Riddle?
So I'll definitely start with this. Like, I work at Aeronautical University, so they focus on flight. Flight's pretty big for us, and then aerospace engineering. So how are we design these planes? How do we structure them? Things of that nature on the engineering side. I mean, we also have mechanical engineering, electrical, some of those other areas as well. And then on the flight side, of course, those are pilots. One thing I love working here, and I will say to the folks on here, especially for those from underserved or like communities, y'all can be in these spaces too. There is opportunity in these areas, aerospace, engineering, overall, and then you have the whole space side of industry too. Somebody got to make the shuttle, somebody got to fly the shuttle, somebody got to do the coordination piece. NASA even has like educational outreach. Somebody has to teach kids about space. And when I walk across some places or in that community, it's not a lot of us. There is a lot of opportunity here. So that's what we really help with students, is those who might have an interest in space from an engineering side. We also have business program too, because somebody has to manage airports. I mean, y'all in Atlanta, I'm originally from Atlanta. Somebody got to coordinate Hartsfield and make sure the planes actually come on time. When they late still, but either way, like, so like that's the whole aviation management side, buying, selling planes. How do we create the routes to make sure that we can get you to Charlotte, but also get a plane back here to fly somebody to LA? So that's a whole side of that. And then we have an arts and science department. That's a mix of chemistry, math, astronomy, something called human factors, especially for a lot of those who have an interest in psychology. Look into human factors. Human factors is, how do I use or understand human beings and design specific things for them to make sure that they work effectively. There's a reason why the inside of your car is designed a certain way. I mean, there's a reason why the radio is not behind the seat, it's in front of you. But somebody had to study that to be like, all right, let's study 1,000 humans. Where should we place this radio for its optimal use? And because I say that because I used to work at Bethune prior to this, I had a lot of my students go into psychology. There's opportunities outside of just, if you want to counsel, continue to do that. But there's a lot of opportunities there. And then back to my job, I support students who do research in some capacity. If I can pay for it to help them. And research can be anything. It could be putting on a lab coat and work with test tube beakers. It could be doing a research study on, or it could be doing a market analysis if I'm in business. Let me see what my top 10 competitors are doing. That's still research. even down to our community piece. I could be volunteering in a school and interviewing kids on what it's like to read or what are your struggles with reading. Look at 100 kids and we now know their problems, then we can create a curriculum to fix it. I mean, research is back to storytelling. It's asking a bunch of questions, then taking data, then recommunicating that to people so they know the full story.
That's good.
You know, more about how you manage your time, because you're doing a number of things. You know, how do you balance? You're an adjunct professor. You do different things. How do you manage the different roles, and how do you know when to apply each one as a priority over the other?
So there's sometimes I do it really good, and sometimes I'll be struggling. But one thing I'm challenging myself now into this new season. When you think about your story, it's intentionality. Like what? And I've heard, seen John Maxwell was talking about in his communication book. Like, what are your values? And then do things align with values. Because in the past, I would do anything. If anybody asked me to speak, do whatever, I would do it. And there might be some self-efficacy or some esteem issues there in the past, but I would do it to help. But then you burn yourself out. Then you're exhausted for the things that do matter. You know what I mean? Augusta, you have a kid. If you everywhere else but the swim meet, you're going to be falling asleep at the swim meet when you finally get time. So to me, A, having a calendar, B, understand what you value, and then you can still do good work, but do it intentionally. So like Juan, you're a coach, and it sounds like you inspire kids too. You probably coaching the kids that you mentor. And you're probably doing both at the same time. So you get to inspire your youth, but you also get to practice your skill at the same time. So like just building that intention, because you can do things that have multiple purposes and still benefit you.
You know, when there is connectivity, things that you're doing makes it a little bit easier, because one act, one behavior can really trigger multiple effects in the different things you're doing. So with all these different competing interests that you have in Augusta, you know, how to manage it is so important. Manage them is so important, and know when to prioritize. So, you know, if you're watching our program, listening to us, I think that's something we all need to pay a bit of attention to, because all important things are not important all the time. You know, that's something we need to all be mindful of, because us busy people trying to get it all done, do it all, it's not always possible, right? Okay. Juan?
Oh no, I agree. I definitely agree. This one of the workshops that I did often with my college students was time management. And I had to even look at my own time management, because, you know, like Dr. Ronnie said, you know, just even at the, you know, the university level, it was a lot, you know, and then there's, you know, data runs, especially in education and anything rather, but especially education. Data is important. So these workshops, all of these things, it became a lot. So the very thing that I was learning and putting together and having to, you know, train and coach. So I'm like, I'm having to apply the same stuff to myself first, because time management is a key piece.
Yeah, I remember when I was in school. I'm still in school, right? And it's life, right? And they said you better manage yourself around the time you have, because you cannot manage time. Manage yourself around the time you have, and you will be more effective, right? How do you apply yourself with what you have? Because time is that resource that, you know what that is, right? 24 hours in a day. How do you apply you, right? Yeah. So very important. Augusta?
Oh yeah, there's time management is key. Like you said, you know, there's specifically you're somebody, you know, with children. I've learned over the years, you know, you just have to designate time, and you have to decide, all right, and prioritize. And every day when I go into work, you know, Microsoft Teams, it'll have a little red bubble when you're busy. My red bubble is all but about an hour and a half a day. You know, I take about 30 minutes to go outside and walk, and, you know, I listen to my little worship music and zone out. Then I take an hour to just be away from coworkers because I was like, I need to decompress. But other than that, like that bubble is busy because I'm like, if I don't put this on the calendar, if I don't do this, like I could easily lose focus. Then all right, let me pivot to this. No, this time is designated for this. And I'd say that's specifically of high importance, you know, if you're a father, if you're a husband, a spouse, like that, like you've got to make sure you manage it correctly because you don't get it. The only thing you get more of is tomorrow. So you never get another today.
Yep.
And the opportunities are different opportunities tomorrow. That same opportunity. So we must be mindful of that. You know, Dr. Mack, you're an advisor and you advise students all the time. What's the one thing you can say to, let's say one is, and he's already in the education business, right? But he's looking to take it to another level, to step it up. What would you suggest?
It depends on what his goal is. My conversation with students all the time is like, what's the future goal you're trying to do, and can you reverse engineer it? Because a lot of times we want, let's say step A, let's say I just want to graduate. Yes, we can definitely coach that. But why do we want to graduate, and what career and position will that get us to? And then let's also think about what lifestyle will that career create for us. So if you know what this bigger vision and strategy is, then you can reverse engineer back. And then it also makes everything relevant too. So if I got to go to study hall, it's relevant because I need to pass the classes to graduate, to go work at this company, to go create the life that I desire. So it makes everything make sense. Because I know I was the type of learner where I didn't have a goal. I didn't have a vision out. Like I was saying earlier, I was just doing things that came to me. And then you're just like, what's the purpose of this stuff? And it's easy to forget your why and then be unmotivated. But if I know, if I can put these extra hours in the library, I can get the grade I need. I can save some money by not having to take out loans and take another semester. I can go graduate. My mama can see me walk. I can get the career, and I can be a blessing to my community once I make these achievements. Then the bigger picture makes the small things important.
So, yeah, that's awesome. Intentionality is very important, as we know, right? And yeah, just being intentional. Yeah. Augusta, I see you like you're.
Yeah, it's words I like, you know, like time management, intentional. Specifically, you know, I always speak from a fatherhood perspective. And those are just things that, you know, hey man, time, intentionality. Like that is it'll time and intentionality go a very long way, specifically, you know, when it comes to relationships, whether it be with children, friends, family, spouses. Time and intentionality are major.
Yeah, and again, we're on Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. Are we living in a changing world?
Every day.
Changing, right? Is it? Do you see it as a world that is more conducive for certain kinds of people? For what kind of world are we heading into?
That's a.
Well, I tell you what kind of world we're heading into. We need to determine our world that we're living in. We have something to say about it, don't we?
Yeah.
And what we're doing tonight is saying something about the world that we're living in, right? We're talking about our stories. We're sharing our stories, and we're not just sharing it because we're in the business of just talking. We're sharing it because it's important to us and it's important to those who are listening to our stories. It's an opportunity to teach and learn as we share, right? So the kind of world we're living in, I would believe, is a world that we become more active as active participants in that world. You know, we're the ones that are, you know, in the position to determine our outcome. Yeah, so I think that's the kind of world we need to pursue, where we are not just passive travelers in the world, but active participants in the world that we're living in.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're getting close to wrapping up tonight. And as we always do, we're going to go around the room. But before we do that, I want to ask Dr. Mack, is there anything else you would like to add that you haven't talked about yet? Is there anything else you want to share with us?
My last thought, and that's something I'm challenging myself to, is write your story down. Write the past, even the good and the bad, the things that may have happened to you that influenced you. Like you wonder why you got an anger problem. What was some of those precursors that got to that? Or if you're inspired to educate and help people, there's probably a family member that did that. Write that story down. Write where you're at in the present. How do you feel about it? Are you achieving what you want to? And then also look at the future, the desired future. What do you want to look like? What do you want people to say? What achievements? If God closed the book tomorrow, like what was all the things that you've done? And then also to align with what he created you for. And there's something just to continue to review, like past, present, and future, because you're writing your story every day. It's up to you, kind of what you're saying, Dr. Stevens, like it's up to you what entries go in there. So, but first assess where you've been at, and then write that down and share it with whoever needs it.
And understand, just to add on to what Doc is saying, that every day is an empty page. It's a new page.
Yeah, sure.
To write on, to continue writing, right? So understand that yesterday is yesterday, very important. Because you must learn from your past experiences as well. But today is a new beginning.
Yeah.
Empty page to write. Start writing. So writing down your story is important. It's important. It's important. Juan, let's go around the room. Final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I first want to just thank our guest. Thank you, Dr. Ronnie, for joining us tonight. It's been a great conversation. Definitely commend you, admire you, appreciate you. To our audience, we've been talking about, you keep hearing, just understanding your story, knowing your story, telling your story, and now finishing up with Dr. Ronnie saying, write your story. I do want to say this and add this piece, that you are a living letter. And you never know what this story is going to change for somebody else. They're watching you. They need your story. They're reading everything. So don't leave anything out, because your narrative is going to change the course for somebody else, even for your own family. You never know, but it will most definitely inspire and influence others, because you are a living letter. Your life matters.
Every minute, every moment.
Living letter.
Yes. Augusta?
That's what I was saying.
Augusta, do you want to follow up?
Living letter.
Yeah.
Damn.
Real. It's not just a piece of something. It's real.
I'm in agreement with Juan and the doctor. Man, write the vision, make it plain. Your story.
Yeah.
Everyone is someone somewhere. You have a story that'll be amazing, and if you don't write it, if you don't speak it, no one ever hears it, and then you're left with that regret of, I would have said this. I wonder if this would have changed this thing. Just don't let this, even though we halfway through, don't let this be the year of what if. Yeah. Just go as a great a great prophet I heard once say, go do it scared. Man, just go do it scared, man, and don't let your voice not be heard. Don't let your words not be read.
Yeah.
Powerful. Dr. Mack, your final thoughts?
I just appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you creating and being brave, back to your other word, of creating a space for men, because we need more space to connect, to exchange those stories, help people realize like you're not alone. There's some commonalities between us all, and we can walk this path out together. So I thank you for being brave to create this space.
Thank you. And of course, you know that the idea was initially mine, but I certainly did not implement it and execute it on my own.
No.
So lots of brave, and you're seeing two other brave men on here as well, and and I really appreciate you for coming on to share your story. Yeah, because it's so, as Juan said, it's real. It's a living letter. It's not something that is dormant and stuck. It's real, right? So, gentlemen, I'm pleased and I honored to say that tonight I'm in the company of the brave man, the empowered man, the resilient man, and the inspired man. And together we shall all rise, conquer our fears, and become iron through whatever trials and tears. How about ending it like that? Good ending? So I'm going to take us out with our good song here that we played, and then I'm going to ask that we come backstage for a minute after, okay?
In a forge of life where strong survive, a tale is written of hearts that strive. Through fire and flame they find their way, becoming iron where courage holds sway. Becoming iron with hearts forged in fire, tales of courage and conviction rising even higher, displaying strength in the fiercest fight. Becoming iron, shining in the night. The brave man faces the darkest night. The empowered man fights with all his might. The resilient man stands unwavering and strong.